Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Programming Forecast. So in today's lesson, we will discuss about built-in middlewares. Middlewares like Helmet, CORS, Morgan, Cookie Parser, and etc. And so by the end of this lesson, you will understand what are these middlewares does and why Express needs production middlewares and the size limits of a request, how to organize middleware, and finally why middleware order matters. So let's not further delay, let's get started. So before we write any code, let me ask a question. You already have this piece of code in your application, Node.js application, right? There is a Express under app constant, and now we are using app.use to inject express.json middleware that we have discussed before, to inject this middleware in our project. So, and finally we are creating routes using app.use. So it works. So why do production applications have many more middlewares? Because an Express application has many responsibilities besides handling routes, and a production backend must protect itself, parse the incoming data, log the requests, read the cookies, handle cross-origin requests, reject malformed requests, and finally prepare for authentication. So basically, middleware help us achieve all of this. Now, our production middleware stack could be like this. By the end of this lesson, our application will process requests like this. Let me show you a flowchart. So basically here we are getting incoming request to our middleware Helmet. Then we have used another middlewares like Morgan for logging the methods or logging the requests from the clients. Then CORS, which actually help us to define the origin. We will talk about it later. Then express.json middleware, we have talked about this before in our previous lessons. What actually express.json do? It actually process the JSON and make it to JavaScript object so that we could use it in our backend app. And finally, there is another one, express.url encoded, and then cookie parser. It is to parse the cookie of our app, and then it comes to the routes, and then finally it gets a response. So this is the middleware stack, our production middleware stack basically. So every request passed through this middlewares, as you can see. Okay, so first install our required packages. So here our required packages is Helmet, then Morgan, CORS, then cookie parser. Okay, now let me install it first. Simply open your project in VS Code. I am opening my production API auth project. Okay, so I just open my project, then open the terminal, new terminal. Then in terminal, simply write npm install. I am pasting the command. Here is the command npm install. There is a space in between, and then space Helmet, space CORS, space Morgan, space cookie parser. So basically we are installing four middlewares in by one command, and hit enter. So now npm will install all these packages for me. Okay, fine. Our installation is complete. So now let's understand why each package exists before using it. So the first one is Helmet. So what problem does Helmet solve? Why we need Helmet in our project? So basically, when a browser visits your backend app, your server sends HTTP headers, right? So without Helmet, your headers will be look like that. Let me give an example to make it clear to you. So without helmet, whenever you will print your header, it will give you this information: the method, which is HTTP, then the status code 200, and the content type application JSON. But with helmet, we will get some other informations which is related to our security headers. And with helmet, we will get this kind of information. As you can see, there are a few other informations included. X-frame options, we will get through it later. Just for now, understand that the difference between without helmet and with helmet. So why is this important? Imagine someone embeds your website inside their another website using iframe from HTML. So without the protection, without the helmet, the protection will be very weak. Without the protection, so this is the attacker's website, and they set a fake login button, and inside this they set your website. So users think they are interacting with your site, but this is known as clickjacking. But actually there is a phishing, this is a phishing site actually, and it is users are thinking they are using your site, but actually attackers are doing illegal phishings with them. So helmet helps protect against these attacks like this by setting appropriate security headers. Now let us use helmet in our app.js. So open your project and open app.js. So let me open my project first, and we have a file called app.js here. We will add our code here. So simply import helmet first, as we install helmet from npm. Now import helmet from the helmet package. Now as you all know how we inject middlewares in our file, we simply use app.use to inject middlewares in our project. So as it is, we will use app.use and inside that we are calling the helmet middleware. So helmet configures sensible defaults basically. Now okay, fine. Now the Morgan. So Morgan is another middleware, and Morgan logs every HTTP request. So without Morgan, you will simply see the console logs, or simply see the printouts like server running or server started that you have added. You won't see the logs or the method or the URL of a request. So Morgan help us to print the HTTP methods, the URLs, the status codes, the time our request is taking. Let me show you. Morgan help us to print these logs in our terminal. So as you can see, this is the printout we get whenever we are using Morgan in our project. So as you can see, you will get the HTTP method, then the URL, and finally the status code and the time the request takes to response, or the response time actually. So why is logging important? Suppose a client says login is not working. So Morgan let you check whether the request reached your server, whether the request is returning the status code 401 or 404 or 500, why it is not working actually. So it took an usual and it always show you the unusual long timing if your request took any unusual long time. So using Morgan, we will simply import it like we do in helmet. So simply import Morgan from Morgan, and then like the helmet, simply use app.use to inject Morgan in your project. Okay, so as you can see, there is a parameter called dev. So this is basically a predefined format optimized for development. So if you want to know more about dev, okay, let me explain this why actually we are using dev. We can use uh, other predefined formats also, like tiny, then we have small, then we have common. These are the predefined formats combined. So this is basically telling the Morgan how we want our logs to be printed. If I give you an example, then okay, let me show you an example. Okay, let me tell you one thing first. Dev basically used in development mode, but it doesn't mean that we can't use it in production mode. Basically, in production mode, we need some other informations also. As I said you before, that whenever you write this format dev, Morgan will give this kind of output: HTTP method, URI, the status code, and the minute. But it won't give you the IP of the user. If the user asks you for any kind of help and you can't actually suppose a user told you that in morning 9 a.m. I couldn't log in your website. So suppose your website have 5,000 or 500 requests at 9 a.m. So you won't be able to identify that specific user from this log. So basically in production, we need more information like the time, the hour, and the IP address of the user maybe. So that is why in development mode, we simply use dev, because in development mode, we don't need actually that kind of information. But in production mode, we want or we need others information. And this can be like, okay, let me show you why we don't use a dev in our production. So imagine your API receives 5 requests per second. So that is manageable. But now imagine in production 500 or 5,000 requests per second, as I said before. So your terminal would be flooded and you will get hundreds of log like that. You will get hundreds of log like that. Okay, so on a busy server, this quickly becomes difficult to work with. And production logging needs more information. As I said, suppose a user reports that yesterday at 2:15 p.m. I couldn't log into your website. So a simple log like this, so it doesn't tell you much. In production, you often want logs like with more information like this. Like this. As you can see, here is the IP address, the date, and the time, and also the reason and the browser information, everything. So now you know the client IP, the date and time, the route, the status, the browser or the user agent, or the response time. So Morgans actually help us to identify the problems by this. So in production, we use this kind of information and we want this kind of information, and for that we will use the combined predefined space for production mode without the dev. In development mode we are using dev, but in production mode we can use combined. So it will give us much more information about the client request. And also Morgans have the formats, custom formats also. It have custom formats. You can make it, we can create our own formats also. Morgan allows custom formats, like if we made a custom format like that, as you can see, we are telling Morgan that we want the method like post HTTP methods are post, get, or anything. The URL, this is the URL, then the status, this is the status code, then the response time, this is the response time. So you can basically tell Morgans what kind of informations you want in your log. So you can include many predefined tokens like remote address, user agent. So Large applications often use Morgan only as the HTTP request logger and send its output to the dedicated logging library such as Winstone or Pino. So this we will in this course in development mode we are using Morgan basically, but later in the course we will introduce Winstone for application logging and show how to integrate it with Morgan. So you are following a production ready app projects actually. So we will use maybe Winstone later for our production ready applications. Okay, now go to our next middleware, that is CORS. So this is one of the most confusing topics for beginner. So imagine in front end you have a URL or you have an address like that. Okay, let me type it for you. So in front end you have HTTP, your front end app is running on this address. Okay, and your backend app is running on this address. So these two origins are different because the port number is different. So whenever your front end web app sends any HTTP method or any request, the browser asks, is this server okay with the request from another origin? Because the server is running on port number 5000 and your front end app is running on port number 3000. So the addresses are different. So browser asks your server, are you okay with the request from 3000? So if the server doesn't allow it, the browser blocks the request. So what is an origin? Origin is made up of protocol, host and port. So this is basically an origin. This is the protocol HTTP. This is the host, local host for us, and this is our port number. So there are three parts in origin: the protocol, host and the port number. So basically this origin is different from this origin. So because the ports are different. So now let me use CORS in our project. So simply open the app.js. So I hope you understand what actually CORS does. CORS actually let you enter another origin, or let your server or let your browser know that yes, my server is ready to accept request from this specific origin. Whenever your origins are different for front end and backend, because in development mode our server is our computer or our PC. So in our personal computer we can't use the same port to run different applications. So that's why in our front end our port is different, and in our backend our port is different. But in production mode we there can be difference in the origins, but always it can happen that our origins are same. So whenever our origins are same, we don't need CORS actually, because we don't face these kind of blocking issues by the browser. But in most cases we use the different origins for front end or for backend, because this helps us with the scalability. Or if we keep the backend in different origin, then it helps us to use this same backend for our mobile and for our web app. We can actually multi-use it. So that's why in production or in many cases we actually use different origin for front end and for backend. So in that case we have to tell that we are ready to accept these different origin requests. We have to tell this to our server or to our browser that we are ready to accept this kind of request which is coming from another origin. Don't block it. So that's why we use CORS. So let me show you the implementation of CORS. So simply we will import CORS. Okay, now we will use app.use CORS, and under that we will define our front end. We will define our front end origin to our backend server. As our front-end origin are different from our backend, so we have to let it know that we can accept this kind, we can accept requests from this specific server. Okay, and credentials, later when using HTTP only cookies, so we will get to know what is actually credentials too, and it is actually whenever we are using the HTTP only cookies, in that case as credentials will become very important. Okay, now express.json. So you already know that it converts JSON into a JavaScript object, and production applications also limit the request size. So we have used express.json in our, didn't we use it? We didn't added it yet, but I think I have talked about it in my previous middleware lesson. That express.json is a built-in is a express middleware, and it helps us to convert our JavaScript raw JSON, actually sorry, not JavaScript, raw JSON to our JavaScript object to process it in our backend app. So how we use that, you simply use it like app.use express.json. Okay, so now here comes another point, that is production applications also limit the request size. Like we will tell the limit is 50 MB or maybe 10 KB. We have to put it under the curly braces. Okay. So why limit request the why we are limiting our request size? Because suppose someone sends 500 MB JSON and your server tries to parse it. Memory usage increased dramatically, and limiting request size helps protect your application from abuse and accidental oversized payloads. So basically that's why we are limiting our request sizes. As you know, express.json is basically processing your JSON from the requests in JavaScript. So okay, that's all about express.json. Now coming express.url encoded. So browsers often submit HTML forms as if like, let me show you by an example. This. Okay, so this middleware parses those kind of requests. Okay, so this is actually HTML form type. So for APIs that mainly receive JSON, you may not use it often today because it's common to include it for compatibility with form submissions as basically. So for APIs that mainly actually working with JSON, we will not use that express.url encoded, but let me show you how to implement it. Simple. In your app.js file, simply write app.js and then simply add express.url encoded, and inside that add a curly braces and write extended true and limit is 10 KB. Now I am not using it right now in my project. Now the last one is the cookie parser. So later we will store refresh tokens inside HTTP only cookies, and cookies arrive as plain text. Like you will have a JSON named cookie, and under that you may get a refresh token like that. Okay, so without cookie parser, whenever you will try to use this cookie by writing request.cookie, you will get undefined. And with cookie parser, you can extract this refresh token. You can simply write request.cookie.refresh token, and you will get ABC123. So that's how cookie parser worked. So using cookie parser, simply go to your app.js and import it, like import then cookie parser from cookie parser, and simply write dot use cookie parser. Okay, so that's all today. These are the middlewares and these are their works. Now we will talk about the middleware order. Order actually matters. So the recommended order is Helmet first, then Morgan, then CORS, and then express.json, as I said, and then, okay, fine, let me add it for you. Okay, so then the express URL encoded, and then finally the cookie parser. Okay, so why this order actually matters? Because security headers are added first, and then the login options, then the login begins, and then CORS is checked before the routes. Because as I said before, whether we will whether we will work with this kind of origin or not, with this origin or not, before going to routes we have to make it sure. So CORS is checked before the routes, and body parsing happens before controller need the request.body, request.cookie. So that is why before going to controller we need this cookie parser or body parser. Sorry, we need this cookie body parsing. This is body parser and this is cookie parser. These are different. Whenever you are using express.json, you can simply use request.body in your project to work with the controllers, but without express.json you can't use that like that. It will give you undefined. So same like whenever you use cookie parser, you can simply use request.cookie. Okay, so after express.json or after parsing the body, cookies are parsed before authentication middleware uses them. So after that you will need the cookie parser. So this is my app.js after adding all the middlewares we have talked about. So what we have accomplished: so our Express application now has the security headers with Helmet, request logging with Morgan, cross origin support with CORS. The full form of CORS means cross origin support, means our origin can be different and can come from different origins. That is why it is calling cross origin support. And finally the JSON body parsing, which is we are doing by using JSON express.json, then URL encoded from parsing, and then cookie parser. So this is a production style middleware pipeline basically. So now you can get, I will help you by giving you some interview questions like why do we use Helmet in Express? Secondly, what is CORS? Why do browsers enforce it? And thirdly, what information does Morgan log? Why should request body size be limited? What does cookie parsers do? Why does middleware registration order matters? Okay, so these are some interview questions that you may get in your interview. Now in our next lesson we will move from Express infrastructure to software architecture by introducing MVC, model view controller. I have a video on in Bangla language on MVC, so I will create another video on English language to introduce the MVC to you. So you will learn why production applications separate routes, controllers, services, repositories instead of putting all the logic or all the code into one file. So this architecture foundation will make the upcoming registration process and the authentication code much easier to understand. So okay guys, that's all for today. Hope you like this video. To support me, share this video with your friends and family, whoever need it, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.